Hi guys, this is a video that I have been planning to do for such a long time, and for some strange reason I just have never got around to actually making it. So from the title I'm sure you will already have guessed what the content of this video is going to be. This is my top 5 Disney films. I'm a huge Disney fan and have been throughout my entire life. I'm pretty sure like everyone from my kind of generation grew up on the kind of like classic old Disney films, but then also like the 90s kind of burst of like really good Disney films. It was a massive part of my childhood and it's still a massive part of my life to this day. I found narrowing this down to top 5 really difficult. I found it more difficult than I thought that I was going to find it, and I'm still not 100% happy with my final 5, so there are going to be a couple of honourable mentions. But if I was only allowed to watch 5 for the rest of my life, which I mean the very thought, but if that was the situation that I found myself in, I think these are the 5 that I would pick. First up, we have what has potentially the greatest Disney soundtrack of all time, and one of the most heartbreaking moments in any Disney film. It's The Lion King. The music in this film is just insanely good. You cannot help but, I mean, it puts you through every emotion in this film. You laugh, you cry, you are filled with horror and excitement, and I mean, everything about this film is just amazing. There are just some moments in this film, some classic moments in this film that get talked about time and time again for being just some of the most emotional moments that you could possibly go through in a Disney film. We have the Simba talking to his dad in the sky moment. We have the moment where Mufasa actually dies moment. We have Simba walking up the rock. I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. Simba walking up the rock at the end when he's, you know, taking over the kingdom and taking his place as the king. I mean, there are just so many incredible moments in this film, and it could not miss out on being in my top 5. This film would actually be in my top 3, which the first 3 that I'm going to talk about are my top 3, and I don't think that they would change. Getting a top 5 was difficult, but getting a top 3 I think was slightly easier. Next, we have another of my top 3, and this is one that I got for Christmas. That sounds as if it was the first time I've ever seen it. I've seen this film a stupid number of times, but I got me the DVD for Christmas, and that is Beauty and the Beast. Would you look at that? Beautiful shiny cover edition. And in the inside, we have the classic, the whole gang's here on the cover and the inside. And this is one of these films that just, the moral of this film is good. I mean, at a very base level, it's talking you to not judge by appearances and, you know, get to know what's on the inside of someone. And Belle is I would say my Disney spirit animal. If there was any Disney princess that I would kind of say I have an affinity with, it was Belle. Growing up, being a total bookworm that I was, I just always loved the idea of having my own huge library to go and explore and all these different books to read. And Belle, she's got a good head on her shoulders, you know, she's not interested in Gaston and his nonsense, which is something that I'm going to talk about a little bit later in terms of Disney princess, the problematic side of Disney princesses, which obviously now some of the more kind of contemporary Disney films have dealt with this in an interesting way, but Belle's not the kind of Disney princess that some of the others are, who meet the handsome prince and don't really talk to him and that's it, we're going to get married. She, you know, Gaston's meant to be this wonderfully handsome, strong man from her hometown, and she has absolutely zero interest in him, which just, you know, I'm a fan of. It's again, the music is incredible. There's some beautiful iconic scenes in this. The ballroom scene with the yellow dress and the dancing, amazing. It's got a nice healthy dose of romance in it, which can't go wrong, and great songs, great soundtrack, beautiful, you know, costumes and design, and it's just beautiful. Finishing up my top 3, we have, again, I think music has a lot to do with this, and the songs in this film, again, are just incredible. But closing the top 3, we have Aladdin. This, it might be my favourite. It might be. If I had to pick one, it could potentially be Aladdin. There's just so many amazing things about this. Again, we have an incredible soundtrack. Some of these songs, once you've heard them, they are not going out of your head. I think the Genie, it now makes me sad, I haven't actually watched it since Robin Williams passed away, but the Genie has got to be one of the best Disney characters ever, surely. He is hilarious, and also there's some really sad moments with him where you're thinking, what a life this poor guy's had. But I was thinking about this morning before I made this video. I think what I really like about these guys is that unlike most of the other ones, oh, and it also kind of applies, I guess, to Belle and the Beast, or Prince Adam, as he was known before he was transformed. But yeah, I think what I really like about these guys is that you kind of understand why Jasmine falls for him. Aladdin obviously is, you know, the main kind of character that's happening in this film. But with Jasmine, we get to know both of them individually pretty well throughout the film. So you then kind of understand, you get to see her in the palace, sort of trapped, wishing that she wasn't sort of, you know, hidden away from the world and that she could go out and explore and meet people and everything. And Aladdin, we get to know him, his sort of, you know, life out on the street and everything. And then so when they kind of meet and then there's that spark, you're like, ah, I see what's going on here. Whereas in a lot of the other Disney films, you know, Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and Snow White and some of the older ones, you don't get that. You don't get that kind of that time with the guy, if that makes sense, to kind of get to know him that bit better. And so I think that's probably why I like fancied Aladdin. Of all the Disney princes, he's probably the one that I had a crush on. Because I think you kind of get to know him and you get to know he's that kind of like cheeky chappy. And so the relationship kind of makes more sense, if that makes sense. I think Iago is one of the greatest kind of like evil sidekick characters in any Disney film. He always makes me laugh. He's hilarious. But yeah, definitely top 3 material, potentially even number 1 slot material. Next, we have the fourth of my top 5. I should have probably said this. They aren't actually in any particular order. I feel like those are the top 3, but there's not any real sort of solid order to this. This is probably not going to be a surprising one. And there's part of me that sort of hates myself for this because I'm like, no, stick to the authentic, good old, you know, the 90s and earlier Disney films. But I can't not include it. I thought I could. I was like, let's be serious, let's think about this. And then I thought about never getting to see this film again. And it just made me incredibly sad. So yeah, Frozen took me by surprise, I have to say. I wasn't one of these people who went to the cinema to see Frozen the minute that it came out. I wasn't kind of instantly on the bandwagon. And eventually I watched it with Emma a little while after it came out. And the first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, it's good. I like it. One of my favourite things about it is I've just realised that there is a cardigan or like a jumper on the couch behind me when I've been filming this, which, oh, that's so annoying. Anyway, we're gonna not worry about that. Initially, my excitement about this film was Kristen Bell. We all know Kristen Bell's one of my favourite people. I adore her. I think she's just incredible. And so obviously she is the voice of Anna, and so that made me quite excited to see the film. The first time that I watched it, I thought that it was good. I really enjoyed the music. I liked the characters. I loved Anna. I thought she was great, and I loved the relationship between Anna and Kristoff. So it was great. But I wasn't kind of blown away. I wasn't as kind of overwhelmed with excitement as I thought that I should be, the way people had been talking about it. But then I watched it a second time, and I was like, ah, okay. Feeling a bit more excited about it. And with every time that I've watched this film, I've watched it quite a lot of times now, every time I've watched it, I've loved it more and more and more, and I've found more and more things about it that really appeal to me. The first time again that I watched it, I wasn't a huge fan of Elsa. I thought, you know, I felt for her, but I wasn't kind of massively drawn to her the way like all kids seem to be. It was definitely Anna that I was drawn to. But having had Anna and Elsa appear in Once Upon a Time, this sounds insane, but I now feel like I know Elsa a lot better, which sounds really daft, but I do. And now every time I watch the film, it's made me like Elsa more and more and more. So thank you, Once Upon a Time, another thing that you have brought to my life. I just think there are so many hilarious moments in this film. I think Olaf is just, I mean, you couldn't not love him, you really couldn't. He is amazing. The kind of banter between him and Sven, or Kristoff, is incredible. And Anna's got to be one of the best recent Disney characters. She's just so feisty and fun and sweet, and she believes that, you know, she believes in the good and everything, and she's a great character. I really, really love her. I really like the kind of modernisation of that Disney princess relationship where, you know, these two meet instantly and it's like, wow, we're in love, and then it's like, no, you're not. Realistically, let's admit you're not actually in love, you just met each other. And it kind of tackles that old style Disney princess falling in love with the handsome prince just because he's handsome kind of idea, and then throws her into a situation with someone who's much better suited for her and shows her, you know, that maybe getting engaged to someone after 5 minutes is not the best idea. I also think that there's something about Let It Go. There's something about that song. I don't know what the writers did, but they've managed to work some sort of chord combination or something together that it's impossible. I mean, I've seen videos of babies and dogs and cats, not cats, but dogs getting like woken up with excitement and singing along, not really singing along, but you know what I mean, to Let It Go. There's something about that song. It gets into your head and it's great. But yeah, anyway, this couldn't escape being in the top 5. So yeah, I apologise if you are more of an old-fashioned traditional Disney film fan, but I just love it. And rounding out the top 5 is one that I actually don't have on DVD, but I gave this a lot of thought, and I will say that there were some other contenders for this position. So now I'm going to quickly give some honourable mentions to some other Disney films that definitely should, you know, you should definitely go and watch if you haven't seen them. But the ones that were fighting for this final place in the top 5 were Mulan. Loved Mulan. Again, like the Mulan soundtrack is such an underrated Disney soundtrack. It's incredible. I love the kind of girl power aspect to Mulan. I think it's an amazing story. I love Mushu. He is hilarious. There's a lot of really clever, interesting aspects to that film, and I definitely think it's an underrated one. Again, speaking about a more recent Disney film, I loved Tangled. I love Tangled. I think it's such a nice story, and again, it's probably one of my favourite romances because it's that kind of modernised version of the romance where they've got that kind of really fun chemistry and that banter, and it's just really nice. So I think it's a lovely story. I also think it's a really pretty film. So yeah, Tangled was definitely up there. And The Little Mermaid. I just loved Ariel. I think I sort of wanted to be Ariel. And yeah, it's just a lovely film. But when I really sat down and thought about it, I was like, I have to be true to these are ones that I still really love and watch regularly to this day, the 4 that I've mentioned before. But I have to be true to one that meant the world to me as a kid. It was the one that I watched weirdly anytime, the very odd time that I was off school ill, because that was very unusual for me. I did not like being off school, but the very odd time that I was off school, I always watched this, and that is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Very, very old school Disney, classic Disney film, very, very old style animation, but I think that's part of the absolute charm of Snow White. The old style animation is just so lovely, the actual proper hand-drawn animation rather than, I mean, I love stuff like this, but the sort of modern style animation is very, very different, and I think that authentic Disney look to something like Snow White is just got that charm and that sort of magic that you felt when you watched these films when you were a kid. I'm also kind of animal daft, and so I think when I was little I wanted to be Snow White and I wanted to be in the forest with all the animals, you know, having them all sort of prance around and help me tidy the house. I didn't want to tidy the house, but I wanted to have the animals come help me, and I just loved it. And when you're that age, you don't have that sort of train of thought of, hang on a minute, you've just met this guy, you don't know anything about him, you don't love him. When you're a kid, you have the innocence of accepting the nice romantic story, and so, you know, him coming and sort of giving her the kiss that wakes her up from her sleep and saving the day is very lovely and appealing when you are 6. So I just loved it, and it was definitely one that was one of my most watched Disney films. So that's it for my top 5 Disney films. I really hope that you have enjoyed that, and I would love to know what your top 5 favourite Disney films are. Let me know in the comments below. I hope that you have enjoyed that, and I will speak to you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye! That is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Now, I bought this and I started reading it, and I'm going to be honest, I was finding it really hard going.